talk about something, right? There was nothing in particular that kind of directed me to the Our Comeback page, but I just saw it, thought I'd want to talk about it. Specifically today, I do want to talk about the higher education reform package that's just passed the House of Reps this afternoon, or this, yeah, it probably was this afternoon. So I want to go through some things, talking about the bill itself, what it actually entails, how it got passed, etc., 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 and so on. So I thought I might start just with like this ABC article, just to give a bit of context about it. This is the 8th of October. It dropped, yeah. So about what's that? Almost 2 weeks ago. Parliament sat today, so unfortunately I haven't been able to find anything that indicates like how the bill passed. Parliament of Australia bills passed 19 slash. I couldn't find anything as of a couple of hours ago, but let's see if they've updated it since then. Yeah. Jeez, they don't make it easy, do they? Like, I think they must. They must make it this hard on purpose. It's called like higher. I think it's this one. Higher Education Support Amendment. Yeah. So it still has to be centered, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so I'll just quickly go through this article. So Parliament, in this case, it means the Senate has passed contentious laws which that will dramatically increase the cost of some university degrees while cutting the cost of others. They're basically making a claim that like they're job ready courses, so they're trying to prioritize like STEM ones, make them cheaper on HEX, and make less job ready courses like social sciences more. Yeah, so the cost of a social sciences degree will more than double. Nursing, maths, and teaching will become cheaper. They're also talking about One Nation and the Centre Alliance are the ones that agreed. So, for those that don't know, the Australian Senate currently does not have a majority for either of the main parties. It's relying on swing votes from the independents to get through. Um, and Jackie Lambie actually wrote a really fantastic article. I wonder, maybe we'll listen in to the speech.
When you live in Sydney,
This is Jackie Lambie, formerly of Clive Palmer fame, talking about why she won't support the bill. It was actually a very touching speech, if this is the one.
or Melbourne, and your parents both went to uni, and they're professionals who work in white-collar jobs on computers in air-conditioned offices, you grow up seeing every day what's available to you. You don't question it. It just happens. But that's not what it's like on the northwest coast of Tasmania. Certainly not in my day, and it's not how I saw myself. For me, I went to TAFE. I studied the same place as my mum. My dad, he drove trucks.
Yeah, so I don't think that's the speech I was specifically referring to, but yeah, she doesn't want kids to dream cheaper was the gist of the thing. In essence, I think probably the main criticism of this bill is that it's going to make it so that kids that don't want to go down the STEM path are going to be burdened with a lot more debt. Someone like me personally, I've just finished my undergraduate degree. I studied history. I started off at one university, changed over to another one. Failed a couple of units along the way, got better as I went on, and in the end, I still owe around $30,000 on my HEX debt, which is obviously an astronomical sum of money, uh, considering like I mean, just in general, if I went to a bank and took out a $30,000 loan, I'm not even sure they would give that to me, frankly, particularly as a university student receiving income support from the government and so on. Uh, from what I've seen today, I think there was a graph here somewhere. Maybe I can show. So my courses were around $1,000 each. So for a year, I was looking at around $8,000, assuming I passed everything and so on, so on, so on. Society and culture now, we're up to almost $15,000. So yeah, close to double. And that obviously doesn't include any student amenities fees and all the rest of it. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, 15,000 a year, as opposed to the much cheaper amount that I was paying before. Let's see. I was looking at my partners before. Monash University fees 2020. So because because this only passed today, it must have received a cent today. I don't know exactly what happened. I was looking around Parliament for when it passed, but I suppose that it didn't. It must have received roll a cent today. Another reason, ladies and gentlemen, why we should become a republic is that when all of our bills pass into law, they are given the royal assent. So it is on the authority of the Queen that laws exist within this country. Costs for students. I think there was a payment calculator or something. Domestic fees calculator. Here we go. Student contribution amount. So this is for Commonwealth supported places. This is what most Australian students would be receiving. Very few would be paying the domestic fees, which would be an upfront cost. You can see here humanities, 2010 onwards, $6,500. $6,500 as opposed to close to 15,000. So massive increase on humanities. Massive increase on humanities. If we look at the cheapest ones now, teaching, psychology, English, maths, nursing, like it seems so weird to me. Oh, English, yeah, cheap. Humanities, expensive. Like it doesn't seem to make sense to me. We can see if we look at English, I mean, that doesn't even show up here, but like education courses were already relatively cheap. Law has remained about, law's actually gone up as well, surprising. Computing and so like I think in principle, what we want to do with the HEX system, in my opinion, at least in principle, is we want to have it set up so that if you're going into a career that pays higher, you can afford to pay a higher HEX. So if, for example, you are going into law, it doesn't matter if your HEX debt is $50,000 when you finish, because you're earning such an income that will be easily or relatively easy for you to pay off. Compare that with, say, teaching. We probably want teaching to be a lower HEX burden because your income is kind of capped and you're not going to earn as much over your lifetime. Despite the fact that teaching is actually a very valuable and important course that people should be taking. So I think what the government has done with this, here we go, job ready graduates. No, we don't want the one where it passed to the Senate. I had another, might be this one. The job ready graduates package. So this is the all encompassing, not just the bill, but the package that came along with it as well. And I mean, the sales job they've done on this is truly fantastic. If you read here, oh, there's 30,000 new places, 50,000 new short courses. We're making it easier for regional students to get in. University funding is going up. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, fantastic. Great. Oh, we're even recovering from COVID-19 with this stuff. Fantastic. And then if you're actually going here, oh, improving higher education for students. Geez, how could that possibly be a bad thing? How could that possibly be a bad thing? The cost of university degrees in areas of national priorities are significantly reduced. Oh, fantastic. Let's have a look at what they actually think that is. Like management and commerce? Really? Management and commerce is what? A national priority? Wait, new Commonwealth contribution, new maximum student. I can't even get this. Hang on. So the lower ones are the ones they're trying to incentivize, right? So they're saying we don't have enough clinical psychologists, we don't have enough maths, whatever you get out of that. English, I don't know before. Yeah. Okay. So they actually do a very poor job of like outlining what this actually means in terms of what are our national priorities. They just go straight to a price list. That's very interesting for me. But reading all of this, new places, new short courses, the cost of degrees that we determine are in the national interest are reduced. Indigenous students will, what is this, guaranteed bachelor level Commonwealth supported place. University will have a guaranteed bachelor level Commonwealth supported place. I don't even know what that means. I thought everyone had a bachelor level Commonwealth supported place. Anyway, so there's going to be more of them. Simple university access for disadvantaged Australians. Indigenous, regional, low socioeconomic status, and we're making it so that students pay more, blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, 60% of students will either see no change or a reduction in their contributions. So what that leaves out then is that 40% of students, an enormous amount of people, the number of university students, let's look domestic university students in Australia, 40% of students, okay, about 1.5 million people, I can't do 1.5 like that. 1.5 times 0.4, about 600,000 students will now pay more for their degree than they would have paid before. Let that sink in. So more than 500,000 students, more than 2/3, 40% of students will actually pay more to go to university than they would have paid otherwise. Massive, massive. And then they kind of jimmy this thing in. Australia's HECS loan system makes sure that there isn't actually any cost barriers. I mean, for Christ's sake, if there's no cost barriers, if what you're trying to do is incentivize students to go into pathways that we are determining to be in the national interest, like teaching and so on, then how does fiddling with the money, if it actually doesn't create any cost barrier, how does fiddling with the amount that people have to pay for those degrees actually impact the outcome at all? It doesn't even make sense. The logic doesn't flow here. Really shocking piece of legislation here. I'll just show you quickly what Anthony Albanese had to say about it.
Education as being about...
Bloody Twitter, the absolute worst.
We see education as being about creating opportunity. Those opposite see it as entrenching privilege. And that's what we're voting on here today. Because it isn't rich kids who'll be discouraged from going to universities. It's not my son or the son of politicians or daughter of politicians. They could afford to go to university. What it is.
Now, to be fair to the government here, and as they rightly outline, the HECS program does make it so that it doesn't matter if you can't actually afford to go to the university or not. It's not as if all of a sudden now people that were going to go to university no longer can. From a rhetorical standpoint, it actually surprises me that the Labor Party went after it this way, kind of making out as if working class kids will no longer go to university. Instead, what they should have done, what I think they should have done, is instead said, well, look, here is direct evidence that the government of Australia, the Liberal government of Australia, does not want students in humanities who will be criticising them. They want to burden them with more debt. Why? Just out of spite, just out of culture wars kind of crap like that, or because they don't write us glowing reviews. I would have taken it more along that angle, along the angle that this is the Liberals trying to stiff people just for the sake of it, rather than saying, they're trying to prevent working class kids from going to school. Now, having said that, there is some evidence, I think. I'll have to double check this. I think that they are making it easier, or rather making it cheaper, if you pay your course fee. I believe that they're making it so that if you pay your course fees up front, you actually receive a discount. Now, obviously, that incentivizes wealthy people in Australia. Course discount, upfront payment, Australia. So the obvious impact that has is it means that, here we go. So the voluntary help repayment bonus was actually removed on 1 January 2017. I believe that it's been brought back in. Don't quote me on that one. It's very difficult to find out what is in and what isn't in parliamentary kind of legislation, whatnot, until people have gone through it properly. I'm no lawyer. I don't understand the legalese that goes along with this sort of stuff. But the point I'm making is that obviously that creates incentive for wealthy people to go to university. If you can pay up front, you're actually paying less overall into infinity. I mean, it rewards being wealthy, it punishes being poor. It's a poor piece of legislation, really bad piece of legislation. We'll keep listening to Albanese for a minute here.
Is those young people out there today who might be the first in their family to finish school, who are thinking about whether they will...
What a weird zoom in that is. Here we go. That's where it
First
was.
in their family to finish school, who are thinking about whether they will take up that opportunity, that they're smart enough because they get the marks to get into university, but over whether they will go or not. And for a...
So I'll just stop Albo there again. So there's two things that I bring up here. First off, I've just never met a less... I mean, aside from Bill Shorten, the last leader of the opposition, there are very few people I would characterise as so uninspiring as Anthony Albanese. Listen to this. He can barely string a sentence together. Listen.
That opportunity, that they're smart enough because they get the marks to get into university, but over whether they will go or not.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to rag on the guy too much for he's kind of slurring his words and joining things together, but if this is going to be the thing, bang, this is how we're going to hammer the government. You really got to tighten those fucking screws up, Albo. I don't think I've seen Scott Morrison kind of slip and slur as much as Albanese does here. Not to read too much into that as an attack on his character. That's not what I'm doing. But what I am saying is that you need an effective communicator, and he doesn't come across as that to me. The second thing I would go for here is the content of what he's talking about. He's talking about students that are the first in their families to finish school, go on to university and so on. I mean, again, we're not talking about that. This is not going to disincentivize people from going to university. Realistically, if you're worried about taking on extra fees to go to university, it's probably not a good idea for you to go anyway. I mean, university is already extremely expensive. Even if we doubled the degrees, it's still an extraordinary amount of money. If you pick the right industry, you will eventually make enough money. It will pay itself off in the long run. But what this is going to do is disincentivize people who were going to select, say, history, sociology, anthropology, and it's instead going to incentivize them to become teachers. Now, there's nothing wrong with that off of the face of it. But, we can lower the cost of a teaching degree without doubling the cost of a humanities degree. It doesn't need to be like that. So anyway, we'll let him keep going.
And for a working class young person out there in the suburbs and the regional cities, a $58,000 deck at the end of that process is a real penalty to them. We on this side of the House support university education. We support TAFE. We support schools. And guess what, folks? We support early childhood education too. Those opposite, what they've done in ignoring childcare and entrenching privilege in university is a double whammy at both ends of the spectrum. They said, we're not going to give you the best start in life and we'll keep you down later on in life as well.
All right. You get the gist. You get the gist of what he's going on about there. We'll close off these ones. Close off this one. All right, and we'll get back to it. Where was I? Okay. So, look, there's probably some good stuff in this bill. What I want to do with this channel is actually look at legislation, policies and strategies that the governments are using, and rather than instantly poo-poo them as the liberal conspiracy to push the working class down, I actually want to go a little bit more into the detail and nuance of what they're actually talking about. So let's do that now. Let's actually dive a little bit deeper into this. So the loan fee exemption for fee help has been extended. First announced the exemption seeks to encourage students to commence or continue study. So I don't actually know what this is. Fee help. The exemption will apply for all units of study. What is this? Fee help loan fee. So you have to pay a fee for having a help debt? Am I seeing that right? This was also another very controversial part of the bill you may need to maintain a pass rate of more than 50%. It's kind of interesting because what we don't want to do. Okay, so when I think back to when I started at university, I was 18 years old. I'd just come out of a Catholic education system which forced you to do homework, which forced certain behaviours onto you in a way that my understanding is public and other independent schools don't make you do. And so I got into university, and I've never been more shocked before in my life. They didn't care if you didn't do anything. There was no like punishments for not doing the readings and all that. And then as you start to like submit assessments and sit exams, you're like, holy shit, I don't know a goddamn thing. So I made the choice at the time that university isn't for me, and I dropped out. And it was only years later that I kind of went back to university. But at the time, it would have been good to know that, like, okay, even if I fail this semester, I can pick it up next time. I can start again. And so, yeah, this pass rate of 50%, particularly in the first year, I'm not super in love with that. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I pass or fail the degree, or if I pass or fail individual units. I still have to pay for them. They still get accrued on their HECS debt, which we have to pay back in the end anyway. So, look, while we don't want people taking on a bunch of debt unnecessarily, and a bunch of debt for a course that they're going to fail, I think in the first year there does need to be some sort of leeway for this sort of stuff. Yeah, look, I don't really know what the help fee, loan fee. I don't know what that is. 20% non-university higher education. Okay, so maybe it's something to do with like if you're going into a TAFE or something like that. So that's probably a good thing, making TAFE cheaper. I'm totally cool with that. Yeah, see, students eligible for HECS help will receive a 10% discount if they make upfront payments of $500 or more. Now, again, when I was a university student, $500 was not something that I had. I was working 2 days a week, if I was lucky, if my shifts didn't get cut. The thing is, when you are at university full time, you're trying to pump out your degree and just get it over with. It actually so significantly reduces your capacity to work in an availability sense that you're very restricted in the work you can actually take. It's not as if I can just walk into any business and be like, hey guys, I know you're advertising a full-time position. Look, I can do it 2 days a week. Like it doesn't work like that. So you end up in insecure work. You end up in hospitality, for example, where shifts get cut and chopped and changed all the time. Having $500, not only just laying around, but $500 I want to contribute to my HECS debt, that's crazy. So what this in essence means is that students who are receiving financial assistance from their parents will get their degrees cheaper than students that do not do that. Really poor piece of legislation, this one. I understand why the government's doing it. They don't want to be up for HECS debt, basically. Like they would prefer you make payments rather than them. I get that. But in terms of the principle of HECS and how we want to make university as available as possible for everyone, this is a really bad way to go about doing it. Yeah, so this student protection stuff, again, it's almost like 1984 doublespeak. This is the stuff they're talking about you need to pass certain, you got to pass 50% of the time and do all this stuff. Passing on average only 1 in 5 attempted units. Like that is a really low pass rate, but seriously, who is doing university where they're only passing 1 out of every 5 Like I just don't believe anyone's actually doing that. And look, if a student is only passing 1 out of 5 times, surely the university has already spoken to them. Surely the university, if a student's only passing 1 out of 5 times, surely the university, if a student rather is only passing 1 out of every 5 units that they're attempting, surely the university is onto them about that. Surely the university is saying, maybe you need to reconsider your place here. If you don't reconsider your place here, we may do that for you. I don't see why the government needs to be the ones that step in here. Really, leave it to the universities. Leave it to the universities. They want high pass rates. Universities don't want students failing their courses. And so if a student does fail, it's really indicative of something else going on in their life, more likely than not. And so leave it to the universities to handle. If they want to keep them, they can keep them. If they want to get rid of them, they can get rid of them. That's the way I'm seeing it. So, like, ensure that only genuine students have access to Commonwealth Assistant. Like, what is this? Are there all these fake students going out there getting Commonwealth supported places? Like, just such a load of crap. Ensure that students have been assessed as academically suitable for their course. So you have to pass a certain amount. Again, why have a government mandate on that? Why not leave that to the universities to determine? Maintain a reasonable completion rate. Place a limit on the amount of study that a student can enroll in one time. Again, the universities already do this. I mean, I couldn't overload. So at my university, we did 4 units per semester. You weren't allowed to do 5 unless you had a very special exemption that you had to get. Okay, allow students to cancel their help debt if their provider has not appropriately managed their progress in a course. Now, this is actually very good for students. If that sounds like what I think it sounds like, what that seems to indicate to me is that if the institution, if the university is not adequately enforcing these provisions, right? The pass rate, academically suitable, so on, so on, so on, the student actually won't be up for a help debt. Interesting idea. I think on the face of it, I actually really like that. But I like that for the students, but what it does is it creates a very strange system where it's now incumbent on universities to make sure the people there deserve to be there and should be there. Yeah, interesting. Protect students from being pursued for study debts if their provider was at fault. I think this one is talking about like those RTOs that go around kind of semi-scamming people. Government's ability to audit for compliance and support providers in putting in place best practice marketing, enrollment, and reporting practices. So yeah, these last few seem to be more against those like RTOs rather than, and probably this one as well, those kind of like shady RTOs that pop up every couple of years rather than kind of more established universities and institutions. Wherever they choose to study, they will be assessed on being academically suited to that study, the academic progress. Yeah, okay, so look, having said everything I just said there, I'm looking at this from a very university-focused lens. I didn't actually consider the fact that there are lots of registered training organisations, TAFEs, private institutions that do offer short courses particularly, and also certificates, diplomas and so on, that actually wouldn't be assessing for academically suitable or not. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. Pay me. They don't give a shit. Reasonable completion rate. They don't care at all if you're doing this, if you're academically suitable, if you're completing good rates. And so actually, I really love the idea that the government is forcing those institutions to carefully look at their students. Now, having said that, do I want that for universities? No. Definitely don't want that for universities. Universities and RTOs are not the same thing at all. They're not even close. They're not even close. Helping Australians reskill and upskill to help. There are 50,000 higher education short courses. Like, that's good. Short courses are actually very expensive though, like astronomically expensive. So just by having more spots doesn't really do anything. Like, if we take a very quick look here, let's go Victoria, and let's just go like something, something basic, like ministry of philosophy. Let's go like, let's just go a diploma in health, like some nursing diploma or something, right? Health sciences. So you only need a 32 ATAR. Maybe this one's a bit odd, actually. All right, Diploma of Tertiary Studies. So I don't know what this does. You want to get into nursing, but you can't quite do it. Blah, 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 blah. Essential requirements. So I think the fee stuff's normally down the bottom here. Oh, they don't even have it. They don't even have it. Come on. All right, let's just select all right, Diploma of Accounting. Great, exactly the one I want to look at. Come on, let's get a fee. Indicative fees, domestic fee, contact institution. Come on. Can I filter by fee type? No, I cannot. No, I cannot. Like if they're all just contact institution, I'm not going to pursue it too much. Why are these diplomas like two and 2/3 of a year? It's very strange. Diploma of business, great. Contact institute. How much does a diploma of business cost? Australia. Here we go. Like $4,500, right, for a 1 year training course. So again, unless you're qualifying for like fee help or fee hex, whatever stuff they call it, it's pretty hard to justify like $4,500. What's going on here? Odd. Anyway, sorry, unrelated to what I'm talking about. So a diploma is around $4,500. Increasing the number of spots, I don't know if that actually addresses the sort of issues that they're saying they want to address. I would much prefer to have cheaper courses that allow people in. But whatever. Tertiary access payment is a one-off, non-index means test payment of $5,000. School leavers from outer regional or remote areas who relocate more than 90 minutes from their home to undertake full-time, high-level tertiary education, Cert 4 or above. Great, fantastic. We really want to get people from the regions coming to the cities, doing their tertiary qualifications, and ideally, we would actually like them to go back to where they came from. Not because we don't love people in the cities who work hard, who are going to take risks and relocate and do all those sorts of things, but because we want them to return to their communities, improve their communities. We want Warrnambool, Bendigo, Ballarat, and Maroochydore and wherever else. We want them to be awesome hubs where we're making stuff and producing things. So come here, get your stuff. We'll pay your first month's rent and bond, and we'll buy you some furniture. Fantastic. I do believe there's a similar payment that happens for university students. So to do that for Cert 4s and diplomas, fantastic. So you got to be from outer regional, remote, or very remote area. Full-time, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, all good. And you have to, means tested, parental income below 250,000, good. How can I apply? How do I receive? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, bond, rent, groceries, textbooks, fantastic. So, look, vast majority of this bill doesn't look good, if I'm being frank. I don't like it. I don't like where it's going, but there are a couple of bright spots in there that I do like. So, look, I'm going to take a quick break here, drink my coffee and do some other things, and I'll come back in a minute and we'll talk about the rest of this bill. Alrighty, I'm back. So I'll just go through the last thing I'll do before I end the stream here is we'll just go through this article here. I want to find someone talking good about this kind of policy as well. So I'll have a look at that. But let's start with 3 flaws in the Job Ready Graduates package. This was written on October 9th. So it had passed the Senate but had not received royal assent yet. Norton, I don't know who this guy is, but he's from the ANU, so he's involved in the sector, which will be affected by the Job Ready Graduates policy. That's right. So he's identified 2 main aims the policy says to have: steer enrolments toward courses with good employment prospects. Again, we've already determined that if the government themselves are saying that HECS is not if HECS ensures that there's no cost barrier for students going to university, I don't know how reducing the price of certain courses will actually steer people towards them. And we're going to ready the higher education system for the Costello baby boom students, the big birth cohort who will reach university age in the mid-2020s. What the hell? Is this the old, like, 1 for mum, 1 for dad, and 1 for the Commonwealth of Australia? Let's see if we can get the video for that. Costello, 1 for mum. Yeah. 1 for the country. Can we get it? Maybe not.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, my question.
Right, that's not what I want. Peter Costello, 1 for mum, 1 for dad. Let's see if that pulls it up. Doesn't seem like we're going to get it. I'll try one more. Peter Costello, have kids. If this is the one that gets it, I'll be so... No, nothing. All right, let's move on. Look, I'm pretty sure Peter Costello famously said, like, have 1 kid for the Commonwealth, 1 for mum, 1 for dad, 1 for the Commonwealth of Australia, something along those lines. So I guess it worked. Jeez, Peter Costello. Look at this guy. Sexual energy flowing through him. Look at him. I'm feeling like having some kids right now, frankly. Okay, students aim to be job ready without fee incentives. So this is this guy's opinion. What's his name? Andrew Norton. Job ready graduates radically changes how students' contributions are priced. We've already been through some of the costs that are incurred by universities. So we're going to, double them. An eccentric exception is made for English. And I did wonder about this, and foreign languages. So I suppose if you're learning like Chinese, Russian, something along those lines, despite having worse employment outcomes. So their policy doesn't even make sense. That's so funny to me. Here we go. He's linked his own Twitter account. Genius. Love it. Get those engagements rolling. Here we go. Studies in Human Society. So what is this? What am I looking at on this graph here? Okay, this is year. Is this number of enrollments? Okay. Yeah, number of enrollments. But where's the employment outcomes? Okay. So language and literature, 40-odd%. I mean, studies in human society, pretty low as well. Political science, slightly above. But, I mean, you're really splitting hairs on that. It's like 42. That's a rounding error difference there, frankly. Anyway. Non-priority courses will be spent cutting student charges in other courses. So they're effectively having history students subsidize maths students. Crazy to me, considering career potential outcomes. That's pretty wild, frankly. Despite shuffling billions of dollars in charges between students, blah, 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 blah. Job-ready graduates will probably not significantly alter student course choices. So this is what I was saying. If HECS already is not is ensuring that there's no price entry to universities, I don't see how fiddling with the numbers is actually going to change anything. What it is going to do is punish students that are more sociologically minded, more historically minded, so on and so on. Student interest and job prospects. That's right. Main drivers of course choice. Very few students are going to be looking at the cost of HECS. I actually didn't realize there was differences in course fees depending on what you enrolled in until very recently. So less than 5% enroll in courses without interest in the field being a major factor. Holy crap. Yeah. Generally, university applications move with labour market trends without any policy intervention from government. Interesting. So I suppose what he's saying here is like if there is a shortage of computer programmers, computer programming enrollments go up. Something along those lines. I guess what he's already saying, employment and salary prospects after graduation already provide a financial incentive for students to prioritise their interests in a job-ready way. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But I guess what the government would argue is that they're just upping that notch one more time. Well, if you're already prioritizing your interest in a job-ready way, then how would this impact you whatsoever? Probably a fair point on the government's behalf. University and student incentives are not aligned. This is true. Well, we'll respond to change patterns of student demand by providing extra student places. I think the government's mandating extra student places. University enrollments typically move in the same direction as student applications, blah, blah, blah. Courses with likely employment growth in coming years, including teaching, nursing, allied health, and engineering, will have less total funding per student under job-ready graduates than the current system. Really? Really? So according to this thing, though, if we look at nursing, what's it under? Allied health, maybe? Probably under allied health, let's say. Seems to me Commonwealth's funding them pretty well. Anyway. Universities are more likely to respond to financial incentives than students. Yes, students can defer paying their fees. University obviously cannot. Universities will examine their revenues and expenditures more closely than ever. So I guess what he's saying is like universities are under different pressures than students are, and so trying to incentivize students to go one way and universities to go another, probably not a super cool thing. Student places are more likely to grow in non-priority fields. Interesting. Job-ready graduates cuts the average student subsidy called a Commonwealth contribution. This means on average universities need to deliver more student places for each $1 million they receive with the government. Yep. So, okay. So I think what he's saying here is that say the government gets $1 million in funding. Say the university gets $1 million in government funding for a history degree, right? It is in the interest of that university to have as many possible students take that course, because the students still have to pay, like, let's say, 60% of the course fees. I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's kind of irrelevant. The point being, the universities are actually incentivized to take on students with lower Commonwealth support subsidies, because it actually means their total expenditure is increased. So, for example, if I'm doing nursing and I can get 10 students in for $1 million worth of Commonwealth money, or I can get 100 students in to history because there's a lower amount that the Commonwealth is subsidizing, I'm actually incentivized to take the history students. Interesting. I didn't think of it like this. That's a really good point, actually. So what he's saying is, even if we're trying to swing student incentives, it's not actually going to work at the university level. The universities are still incentivized to take those that will pay higher fees as a proportion of the government payment. So very interesting. Yeah, here we go. For example, under current Commonwealth contributions, universities need to deliver 91 IT places to earn 100 million. Under job-ready graduates, they only need to deliver 75. So they're actually incentivizing the government, or the government is incentivizing universities to cut the sort of places that they are considering so job ready, so vital to the national interest. Very, very interesting. in law and business, student places per 1 million will grow from 477 to 990. They're going to double the number of spots. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. These 3 design flaws: changes to student contributions that won't change student preferences, overall funding rates that weaken university incentives, and Commonwealth contributions that limit enrolment growth in some courses, create serious doubt about whether job ready graduates will achieve its stated goals. I'm having serious doubts about that now, actually. We can, however, be near certain of serious collateral damage. So, yeah, costs will go up. It's going to take a lot longer to repay help debts. And the cuts to overall funding rates will reduce university capacity to combine teaching and research. Interesting. I think the government has tried to allay that somewhat. I think there's like $1 billion they're going to give just to research. Anyway, I think that's what they said. A future education minister will have to fix these problems, but there's other COVID stuff going on first. Interesting. So yeah, this guy Andrew Norton, really scathing of the government's policy in that sector. So look, I can't be bothered trying to find a good write-up of this. It seems highly unlikely I'm going to find it from anywhere outside of the government. Maybe like the IPA will be in favor of it, but then they're probably against anyway. I don't even think they would be in favor of the government continuing to have Commonwealth supported places. They would much prefer you pay as you go to university. So look, anyway, I'm going to end the stream there. Thank you very much for those watching on Twitch and those watching on YouTube as well. Look forward to engaging with you a little more on this subject, particularly as it starts to be integrated and roll on. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.